my FPL Game Week 4 first team selection. It is the international break and Game Week 4 is about 2 weeks away, but that doesn't mean that we aren't considering transfers to make. We aren't seeing price changes going up and down, and I've actually already confirmed one of my 2 transfers going into the international break as well. So today I'm going to have a look at what my first potential transfers are. We'll have a look at how my team has started over the first few weeks and look at the transfers I've already made ahead of my Game Week 4 first team selection. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And today we're having a look at Game Week 4. I know it is the international break. I know it is 2 weeks away until the next FPL deadline, but I know some of you will be looking at making some potential transfers like myself going into Game Week 4, looking at the price changes that might potentially impact that as well. So to dive in and just have a look to start off at how my team is lining up before I make any transfers, I actually have a lot of good fixtures on paper. Game Week 3 went well enough for me as well. Of course, I had Chris Wood, I had Eze, I had Haaland with the captaincy as well. No clean sheets really to show for it defensively, not like we've seen in previous weeks as well. In goal, we've got Henderson, who was okay in Game Week 3. He made a few saves. He's got Leicester at home alongside Eze, who did come in for me in Game Week 3. That was a late transfer. He did score against my team, Chelsea. It's always a bittersweet feeling, I'm sure you know, when an FPL player you have scores against your own team. Could have done with Chelsea picking up 3 points, though. In defence, we're starting Robinson, who picked up another assist. We're starting Trent, and then we have a little bit of a benching dilemma. We've got Gabriel going up against Pedro Porro, and now I could start either of them in my team. At the moment, it's Gabriel starting, just slightly better clean sheet odds and slightly better goal threat, but I do like Pedro Porro as a long-term pick still, with nice fixtures coming in from Game Week 5 onwards. Into midfield, so we've actually switched to a 5-man midfield going into Game Week 4. That's because Chris Wood, who's been really good for me for the start of the season, has Liverpool away in Game Week 4. So I will bench him and bring him back into my starting lineup for the couple of good fixtures he has in Brighton and Fulham in Game Weeks 5 and 6. So I don't plan on selling Chris Wood, and, Nottingham Forest didn't end up signing a new striker. So actually I don't have any need to really be going and selling Chris Wood in my team. Quite happy with him, but he will find his way onto my bench for Game Week 4. Into midfield, again, we've got Bukayo Saka in there at the moment. We'll talk about a potential transfer for him in just a moment. A couple of cheaper options in Smith Rowe and Rodgers, who did disappoint in Game Week 3. I did actually bench Smith Rowe. Wanted a little bit more from Rodgers. There were a couple of chances he created, which Ollie Watkins did miss. He is looking very nailed for minutes, given that Bailey looks like he's gone off injured. So I'm happy enough with both of these. Rodgers looks more nailed for minutes, but Smith Rowe looks slightly more creative when he's actually on the pitch. And then we do have, of course, Eze, who I mentioned, and then Diogo Jota. Liverpool look like a real force at the moment, and we might be tripling up on them with my transfers going into Game Week 4 as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. Still happy with Diogo Jota as well, given the upcoming run of fixtures they've got. Of course, with Champions League starting in the next few weeks after Game Week 4, there might be a risk that someone like a Darwin or a Gakpo might get a few minutes. But for the moment, I'm still happy with Trent in there in defence, and then with Diogo Jota in my midfield. Up front at the moment, we've gone with Erling Haaland still. He scored 7 goals in the opening 3 games. Very happy with him, and he's currently got the captaincy armband. No doubt really about that, unless I bring in Mo Salah going into Game Week 4, which is potentially in my plans. And then Alexander Isak as well. He's been okay, a goal and an assist so far this season, a goal in Game Week 3. I am just questioning whether he is worth the 8.5 million. I know a lot of you with him in your teams are considering very similar transfers to me with him going into Game Week 4. So actually having a look at Alexander Isak, I've actually already confirmed a transfer. The one transfer that I've already confirmed is Alexander Isak out, as he was looking to go down in price, although the potential for his goal might, slow down the sales a little bit, and bring in João Pedro, who's close, if not going to rise again at time of recording as well. So I've made that transfer already. It's freed up a whole lot of money, which is actually useful for my potential second transfer during the international break as well. The Brighton fixtures are good for the next 2. They're not as great after that, but I still like the way Brighton are playing. They look like they have the ability to score against pretty much anyone. The reason I've gone with João Pedro over someone like a Danny Welbeck is the goals that he's scored in the most recent games. He's playing 90 minutes in pretty much every single game, and he's likely to be on penalties as well. He feels very, very focal to what Brighton are doing, and if they have a bad couple of games, they might change Welbeck to someone like a Ferguson, someone like a Ruta, but it feels like João Pedro is going to be in that Brighton team pretty much every single week without fail. Particularly, of course, they don't have any Europe. Whereas last season we saw João Pedro be rotated because of European fixtures. We're not going to have that so much this year. There's, of course, a risk of rotation, but not the European fixtures to cause it. So I have sold that. Of course, that has freed up a whole host amount of money. I've gone from having no money in the bank, 0.0 and 2 transfers, to having one free transfer, of course, only now, but 2.9 million in the bank, which has the ability to really shake up my team with transfers, one transfer or a couple of transfers going into game week 4 as well. So there's one main transfer I'm having a look at going into game week 4 to use a lot of that money, and that is upgrading Bukayo Saka all the way up to Mo Salah, particularly off a captaincy basis, mainly looking at game week 5. Game week 5 is the week that Saka and Arsenal play against Manchester City, so captaining Haaland is fine. Captaining Saka, if you had him, is okay. But of course, Mo Salah in that week is going to be the standout and best captaincy option. And it does look like at the moment, a draft with both Salah and Haaland in is looking like the strongest and maybe was the best way to start the season. I still look at the next 4 fixtures for Liverpool, and with the Champions League starting, Salah feels like the most nailed option. Now, of course, they've just signed Chiesa, who could be as a backup to Mo Salah, but I do think Salah is still very focal to what Liverpool are doing, and he's only going to go up in price as well. So I will be keeping an eye on potential price changes for Mo Salah over the international break, and if it looks like he's going to go up, I may well decide to make the move early. I could also end up on Cole Palmer. I have, of course, the money in the bank to do that sideways switch. But looking at Liverpool and then looking at the Chelsea result today, I do just think it's safer for me to go and move and buy Mo Salah rather than buying Cole Palmer. So, of course, that Isaac down to João Pedro move freed up all the money I need to go and do Saka up to Mo Salah. Now, I'm not completely priced out. I don't have to make the move as soon as Salah looks like he's going to go up in price. But, of course, I did miss an early price drop on Nkunku going into game week 3, which wasn't the best. I should have made the transfer slightly earlier. So I am feeling like I might need to chase a little bit more value over the next couple of weeks to make up for that. Now, there is actually one other or two other potential transfers I could make to get my Liverpool triple up, which is kind of the aim going into game week 4 and onwards, and that is adding Luis Diaz. Of course, scores well against Manchester United in game week 3. I have the money in the bank. If I don't go Salah, and I could keep Saka to upgrade either Smith Rowe or Rodgers to Luis Diaz and do that as my 5th midfielder upgrade or 4th midfielder upgrade. Keep Saka, don't go Salah. Is Salah worth 12.6 when you've got the likes of Luis Diaz and Jota as potential options? The answer kind of lies in captaincy in game week 5. I'm not certain out of Jota, Diaz and Trent, who I'd captain in game week 5, if it wasn't going to be Mo Salah. That's the other thing that we've got there. Plus, when you look at Champions League football returning as well, does Salah's minutes feel slightly more secure than someone like a Jota and someone like a Luis Diaz? It's all well and good in the first 3 games when they've got 1 game a week, but should we be looking at the others? So at the time of recording, I look at Smith Rowe and Rodgers to Luis Diaz. I think that's definitely a possibility for me, but I think that Saka up to Salah is just more likely at the moment. So just to answer a few of your key questions, of course, it's international break, so we won't have videos over the next couple of days, probably until next weekend now. So to answer a few of your early questions, first of all is what to do with Isak. So you've seen in the video already, I've decided to sell him, not because I think he's a bad asset, not because I think he won't score over the next few weeks. I just like the move to go and get Mo Salah or Luis Diaz in, and it freed up a lot of money, and I'm not sure he's worth 8.5 million at the moment. The next few fixtures are fine. They're not fantastic. So I just think the money that I've taken out of him to go and buy João Pedro to rotate with Chris Wood is better spent elsewhere than on Alexander Isak at the moment. But he's not a priority sell. If you've got him and you want to keep him, they play Wolves away this week, and that could absolutely have several goals in for Newcastle. Next up is those cheap options. So we've got Smith Rowe, Rodgers, and Muniz. Between them, they've only scored 1 goal in the opening 3 games. That's 9 fixtures they've played in, and they have just 1 goal to show for it. Again, I can understand why people are losing patience on it, but I still think they are all heavily involved in their teams. They all have great fixtures over the next few weeks as well. So I don't think they are priority sales. If you have money like me where you might want to do one of them up to a Luis Diaz or something like that, then absolutely fine. Muniz as a forward is definitely a hold. I wouldn't be selling Muniz to João Pedro this week, I don't think. Maybe João Pedro in another forward slot, but I don't think Muniz to João Pedro is massively worth it. And Morgan Rodgers and Smith Rowe are easy holds for me unless you want to go up to someone like a Luis Diaz. And then the final one, just on Liverpool, what do I think is the best triple up if I was on wildcard or something this week? For me, Salah would definitely be in it. And then it would be we going with a defender probably in Trent over Virgil van Dijk. I do think Van Dijk and Robertson are solid, but I do think Trent's attacking threat. Of course, he had a goal ruled out for offside on top of the other chances he created in the Liverpool-Manchester United game. So Salah and Trent would be in there as my top 2. And then Luis Diaz versus Jota is very close. Luis Diaz coming out slightly on top maybe recently, but Jota has had goals as well. I probably would just about favour Diogo Jota at the moment still, just because he's playing central. They have a lot of wingers. Chiesa could potentially take minutes out on that left wing over Luis Diaz as well. So At the moment, number 1 is Mo Salah, number 2 is Trent, number 3 is Jota, closely followed by Luis Diaz, and then you've probably got Van Dijk and Robertson as the others. They're not bad options at all. Any of these triple ups would still do well over the next couple of weeks, but if I had the luxury, Trent, Salah, Jota would probably be my top 3 at the moment. So just to wrap up that first team selection going into game week 4, of course, as I said, I've confirmed 1 transfer. So João Pedro is in there. He's highlighted in blue with that fixture at home to Ipswich in game week 4 as well. Still planning on setting up with a 3-5-2. Haaland captain. And even if I do bring Salah in, I still think it's likely that Haaland will get the captaincy, but I will decide that closer to the game week 4 deadline. Of course, I've now got 1 free transfer, 2.9 million in the bank. And as I mentioned in the video, I do plan on using that. I think Saka to Salah is probably the most likely, but something like a Rodgers or a Smith Rowe up to a Luis Diaz is also absolutely on the card. So with those other 2 transfers in mind, what do you think is a better combination? A Saka and a Luis Diaz, for example, or would you go with a Salah plus a Morgan Rodgers / Smith Rowe, depending on which of them I would sell? Let me know in the comments which of those you'd go. Is Salah just not worth 12.6 when you've got Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota both performing really well? Or is the captaincy the important factor? At the moment, I think the captaincy in game week 5 is important enough for me to go Mo Salah over Saka rather than upgrading one of Rodgers or Smith Rowe. But haven't made that transfer yet, so of course still up for debate. I will be keeping an eye on price changes over the next couple of days. Depending on if Salah, Luis Diaz, I might be forced into making a move a little bit earlier, just like I did on Isak to João Pedro to try and steal a little bit of value. So that's it. We're looking at triple Liverpool with my second free transfer. It's nice that I've got 2 free transfers going into the international break, although I do plan on using both of them pretty early. And if there's injuries later on, it could leave me in a bit of a difficult position. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Leave any questions you've got over the international break for your FPL team in the comment section down below. Of course, as I mentioned, we might have a few days off with the international break, and we'll be back during the weekend. 1 week before game week 4 is the plan. Thank you so much for watching again. Any questions you have, leave it all in the comment section down below. 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.